everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond Your Circumstance. It is episode 2, and I'm super excited that we have a special guest for our second episode. So, today I'm going to be joined with Zanny Davis, a life and business coach for Christian moms and course creators. And so, we're going to learn more from her about some of the things or challenges that she overcame in her life. And she's here with me. Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. This is a really challenging question for me, just because I'm one of these, I think I'm one of these people who are really positive thinkers. I don't take anything as a challenge really per se, but it makes me think to be like, okay, what is it that I have gone through that could be seen as a huge challenge that I need to also identify the challenge and what I've overcome in my own strength? That is a really good question, to be fair.
That is true. And that's awesome that you lean more to positive thinking. I'm also the same way. I don't think I always was, but as I got into my adult years, I just felt like it was better for me to always look on the positive side than stay on the negative side. But that doesn't mean I don't have feelings of like I'm not able or how is this going to happen. Those things still enter my mind from time to time, especially when it
Well,
comes
we are
to
human.
business,
Yeah. Yeah.
business and moms and all the things that we can tend to worry about. But I'd like to hear more about something in particular that you'd like to share with our audience that's listening in today and how you worked through that.
Okay, yeah, of course. So, obviously thinking about it, there have been several points in my life where I'm thinking, like, okay, this is a challenge, but right now, God is just bringing something to me. And I'm like, thank you, God. I definitely talk about my time when I was in a period of uncertainty. So, this is really happened in probably 2018, I would believe. My husband and I were married it was about 6 years by then. We're a military family, so we were living in Cyprus at the time. And 6 years on in the marriage, we were thinking, okay, I'm getting old. I was turning 30. I know, this time we're like, okay, it's time to kind of like extend our family and time to start thinking about having a baby. And I felt like it was a good time because, as I said before, I was coming of age and then we were moving back to the UK. And so we started thinking about this now. And so, just in my mind, I'm just thinking it's gonna be okay. We're just gonna, and at the time I was on the pregnancy pill, and I was thinking, okay, we just come off of it and we get pregnant. But it did not go that way. It did not go that way at all. We were trying for over a year when you think about it, and we didn't get pregnant. So when I say trying for a year, it was like every month. So I came off the pill, and obviously we're trying actively to have a baby, but like there was no false pregnancy, there was nothing. It was just like month after month, just same old. And so after 6 months, I was like questioning. I was like, oh my goodness, is this really gonna happen for us? I started to really get scared. I was like, there we are thinking I'm in my 30s, and I'm like, okay. And this time, the media and medical people, they're like, after over 30, you're geriatrics and your eggs are like this way. And these things are coming to my mind. And I really started to get scared, and I started to ask God, like, is this gonna happen for us? And I remember my husband, and he was so strong and so bold in his faith. And I'm going like, maybe we should go to the hospitals and try to see if we could do tests and go to doctors and get your sperms checked and my eggs checked. And he was like, why are you worried? He's like, God already promised us that we're gonna be parents. Your womb is gonna be fruitful, because we've had this word prayed over us from our pastor, first year of marriage, right? And yes, you remember these things, but you're still like, God, but nothing is happening. There's no, fake pregnancy. No, I haven't even taken a test because, my period was coming like clockwork. And I'm one of those persons who have like very like on time schedule, right? So it doesn't like skip. So my husband was like, do not worry about it. We're gonna get pregnant. Stop stressing yourself. It's going to be fine. And I took his word because his belief was so strong. And I was like, you know what? I'm really gonna just trust him. I trust that he has so much faith. He didn't feel like he wasn't wavering in any way. He wasn't going like, okay, maybe we should do this. He's like, no, we're gonna get pregnant. Stop stressing. You'll be fine, right? We're fine. And I just remember taking that to heart and just standing on that belief and that word. And again, this next month came the same thing. And I just kept remembering, I kept affirming in my heart, I'm like, God, you said this about us. You said we're going to be parents. And I'm just not going to stress it. I'm going to keep believing that word, until it happens. And up until that time that it did happen, it was May. I remember it very clearly. It was like 3 days before my husband's birthday, May 15th. And, I was just talking to my mom just randomly on the phone. I was saying to her, like, I'm feeling a little bit of cramps, but I don't think my period is due. And she said to me, oh, well, why don't you try and take a pregnancy test? And I was saying, over this last year, I haven't taken any tests. I haven't bought a test because, like, it didn't cross my mind to even do that. So I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I will take a test. Just, oh, I didn't even have like any kind of pressure. There was no like, oh my gosh, if it's negative, it was just like, oh, okay, maybe I'll just take the test. It's fine. If it's, there was no pressure around that. And I took the test and it was just positive. And it was the biggest shock of my life because it wasn't something I was expecting at all.
Yeah.
And my mom suggested it. I was just like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And so it was like the best birthday gift from my husband. And I said it was 2 days away from his birthday. And when I showed him, he was like, didn't I tell you? Like, why are you even stressing?
Mm.
It just reminded go back to that feeling. And I just remember how just trusting God sometimes and just remembering to affirm his word over your life and how it just changes everything. So I like right now in my business now, I'm in business now for 6 years and it's definitely not where I want to be, but it's definitely moving in a direction. But it's times like these in my business when I feel down, I feel like things are not working. I go back to that one situation where I was just like, just borrowing the faith of somebody else. And this, in this sense, is like my husband's faith again, because he believes in my business too. I was speaking to him yesterday, and just the positive words that he was saying, and I said to myself, like, I just have to go back to this, just ground to this word and ground myself back to this belief that it is going to happen. And I think when we really surrender and just let go of the resistance, we let go of the fear, release the negative thoughts, like just actively every time it comes, nope, shut it down, shut it down. Keep continue just declaring the word of God over your life. It just changes everything. So yeah, that is my story.
No, that's awesome. I often think about how, you know, we were actually in our life group yesterday for our church, and the verse was from the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew, where it says, "Seek first the kingdom, and all these will be added." And it just reminded me about how like we don't want to surrender sometimes. Like we want to be in control. We want to like make sure that we're doing everything possible to make the outcome of what we want happen. And it takes that step of faith to like really surrender and say, like, God, you are in control. Not me. I'm not in control. You are in control. And then when we can actually just rest in his peace and his understanding and his love, like we'll see that verse come to fruition. Like he's going to bless us. He's going to work things out for our good. And it is a high stress thing. Like for me, when I was getting pregnant for the very first time, I had a miscarriage and it was hard. I had a little moment where I was not trusting God. Like, why would you do this? Why would this happen? And then, God spoke to me. I truly felt God's presence saying that he was going to bless me doubly. And that ended up being me pregnant 3 months later with twins. And it's like, to this day, I get chills thinking about it because I heard him, I truly heard him say this to me. And, it came to pass. But just knowing that in the moment, I just couldn't let go. Like, I'm like, no, I got to do this. Or I got to make sure I track my cycle. I got to make sure I'm doing everything right and by the book.
Yeah.
And by the book can be good in its own way. But when you're solely relying on that, that is going to be the thing, the determining factor that truly gets you where you want to be. It's almost like we're putting something before God.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, right? I remember that so clearly. Like when I suggested, and it's not saying that, medicals things are not good and like you shouldn't track your stuff, but you should really hear from God. I really believe that, right? And I remember when I started saying to my husband, maybe we should go get ourselves checked out. It was a resounding no. Like I felt in my spirit as well. Like you're so true. It's just so true to say that as humans, we think that a lot of outcome comes from us doing something, right? But it is doing. I'm not gonna say no because sometimes you do need to take the actions, but it's always gonna be guided by God. right? And I think sometimes God wants to do a miracle in our lives, and that's a miracle when you haven't done the action, but the outcome still appears, right? And that is how miracles happen in our lives. And many of us are not leaving space for miracles to happen because we're always in the doing, and we always then, as you said so rightly, like we then putting the emphasis on what we've done to create the outcome. But when God is just really wanting to just have this miracle happen to us, where it just was like a look at God moment kind of thing, you know?
Right.
And that's just so much more joyful and so much more exciting way to live your life. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's tough with uncertainty and doubt. I mean, that stems fear.
Yeah.
Fear stems
Exactly.
from the uncertainties in your life.
Yeah.
We don't like it. We don't
Yeah.
like not knowing if we're gonna get pregnant or if our business is gonna make, $100,000, or if, the stuff that we're dealing with in the current moment, whether it's with our kids or our spouse, is going to be rectified. So it's hard. It's hard to really trust in those moments. And that's why I talk about our circumstance, because when we're going through a particular thing in our life, like the circumstance that we're surrounded around, the things that are coming up constantly, we sometimes just don't know how to navigate that. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I have a flat tire, or okay, I lost my job. Now what? Like,
Yeah.
almost we're going to this panic, like it's the end of the world. Oh, I don't have the money to repair that tire. Or I don't know if I'm going to find another job. Or how am I going to afford my mortgage? How is my kids going to get a good education? And we're just thinking about all like the negatives because of
Mm-hmm.
our circumstance, instead of thinking, okay, I have this situation before me. How can I move forward? What positive actions can I take? How can I still give God the glory despite the negative thing I'm facing?
Yeah.
Because it's always in the middle of the storm where suddenly that storm breaks, right? It doesn't rain forever or snow forever. Suddenly, when that storm breaks, what happens? The sun is
Sun
shining,
comes
it's
out. Yeah.
warmer,
Yeah.
right? The weather becomes
Exactly.
warmer. It's a complete change than what we've had. And it's hard because we don't know how long that is.
Yeah, you know, while you're talking as well, like what I'm just feeling my spirit as well, is just remembering too that with our walk with Christ, it is such a balance. It's a twofold. I want to say balance in that, but it's a twofold part, right? It's us one surrendering to God and really listening to Him, and not because sometimes we think, and it's something that God opened my eyes to recently too with my business. He was like, when I say waiting on me, waiting on God, is not sitting and waiting for things to fall into our lap, right? Because a lot of us Christians, I do believe that sometimes we think, okay, let me just pray and then, yes, it will happen. I agree that as I said before, miracles do happen, but we have to listen to God, right? And so sometimes it is the fact that we're taking the action that God is giving to us, but with that expectation that God, you are going to come through for us, right? No, come with me, you are going to come through. And I think that that is the act that we need to constantly be mindful of in our lives. Like we're going to go through situations, but our job is to listen to God, pray, spend time with Him, be guided by Him. And while we're taking the steps that He is leading us to take, not us taking it because we feel X, Y, and Z, but because sometimes God gives us actions that out of the blue, and we're like, well, that doesn't make any sense, but you still do it, right? Because God said it. And so when you take those actions now, is the expectation in your heart that you know what, God is gonna do this for me. He's gonna do it, and even it doesn't matter what time frame it is, doesn't matter when it happens. I just know it is going to happen. And I think when you have that, when you let go of that pressure, because I think that's another thing too. We always like, oh God, I want it this time, and I want it this how, and I want it to look this way. And then we have all of this preconceived pressure and this like conditioning we give to God. And therefore we don't see what we want to have see because we are just like there's much resistance around it. So just let go of that. Just trust that God's timing is always best, and just trust that it is going to happen. Come what may, it is going to happen.
Right, right. So yeah, going back on to trusting in God and just being able to let go. Basically, it's letting go of control of things, and I find that really hard for myself. I have to be honest. I find it hard, especially when I'm asking God for something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in prayer and I'm like, God, I really need you to help me right now with my finances. Right now we're stuck, or we have some debt, and we're focusing on a move soon. And it's like, I don't know how we're gonna do it. It's like
Yeah,
right now, the way I look at it, looking at the books and what my husband brings in, what my business is bringing in right now. I don't know how this is gonna happen. And sometimes I feel, and I don't know about you, everybody has different experiences when they are stressing out about something. But
yeah,
for me, when if it's something that as big as like finances, I almost feel like I'm drowning. I'm not literally drowning, like I'm not in water drowning, but like the anxiety that wells up in me gives me that feeling. And so
yeah,
I've really had to start pressing in to God and like, God, take care of this anxiety, because
yeah.
that is a sign of me not being able to trust you. Because
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that you have the feeling of drowning because it's quite different for me. I feel like with finances, I just feel stuck. You said like you probably feel like pulling on them, and I feel like if I'm like I don't know what direction to go, like I feel so stuck. And then when I feel that way, and I feel like if I can't see outside the box, and I'm just like in this box where it just feels like, where am I going? That is when I feel like, okay, there's nothing I could do. I could just look up. I just have to look up. There's nothing else I could do. I'm like, God, you take the wheel from me. I don't know. Right. And I think that's so much easier for me because, as I said before, nobody wants to be stuck. When you feel stuck, there's nowhere to go. You know, so it's so much easier for me, I believe. And I really appreciate that for myself that when I feel stuck, I'm just like, there's only one person who can help me. Nobody else can help me. What God? And I'm getting in. And I'm like, Lord, I give this to you because only you can do this.
right,
Yeah.
right. And also, I think for me at least, when it comes to surrendering to God, I think there's some components that are very helpful.
Mhm.
So, one thing that I've just been really intentional with, and it's like a non-negotiable, is spending time in the word and praying in the
Yeah.
morning before I start my day. Because,
Yeah.
once your day starts, anything can just hit you by the side and just get you down, and that's it. So I want to
Yeah.
start like, okay, it's me and you, God. Let's conquer this day. That was one thing I started implementing. But another thing is like being able to have people that are also strong in the word, that are also trying to accomplish the same thing in
Yeah.
life. That doesn't mean like, oh, they're on the same weight loss journey, or they're in a business and they're trying to do the same. I mean, like, they're trying to partner with God too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. To
So we
achieve
can
something.
uplift each other
Yeah.
when times get tough, because they do.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
I always say that like God created us for community. He created us to serve each other. And I feel like a lot of us moms, especially, we feel like we have to do everything on our own. And that's a lie. That's not true. And I don't ever believe in that because I truly believe that we go further together. When you feel stuck, somebody's gonna pull you out. And I really believe that that's what God wants us to do. That's why he has his 12 disciples, Jesus, right? When he walked the earth, he had 12 disciples around him, and then he had his inner circle, which was the two, Peter and John, I believe. They were his inner circle that he would go to, and he would then share and speak things truthfully with. So I think that is so important. And of course, spending time, that is was number one for me from the very beginning. That was something that I would never compromise on because I know it just helps me to live in so much peace when I
right,
spend that crucial morning time with God. It is like, so yeah, it's
yeah,
important.
totally makes a difference. And I also started it with the kids, which has been
Yeah.
awesome, because just seeing them grow and develop and their understanding of God, right? It's so amazing. They come up with questions that I'm like, wow, I never thought of that. It's just been amazing. So it's kind of like I am trying to do my own inner work, but then like I'm getting blessed by seeing my children being able to kind of wrestle with questions and learn more about God. So yeah, I think the overarching theme, right, is not letting fear overcome you. Fear is what causes my anxiety to well up
Hmm.
like that in me,
Yeah.
but fear is not from God.
Yeah.
And so we need to go to the source where there's no fear, to kind of relieve that from us. And
Oh yeah, oh, yeah. One of my favorite scriptures, especially when I know the feeling is fear, and I identify it as fear. That I always say, "For God has not given me a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and a sound mind." I say that every single time out loud because I am like, you know what? Fear is such a huge thing that God gave us three powers, three things to remove it or to get rid of it. Three. Also, I just say that to myself all the time, and every time I say it. I feel like everything just dissipates and just feel like the fears running away. So yeah, scriptures are so important as well. Just to use over your situation, especially when you identify it as what it is. I think sometimes too, we are overcome with so much emotions that we can't identify it for what it is. So I'm glad that you too have identified that yours is fear. And so when you do feel that fear and you know it's fear, yeah, no, that's not from God. And then you just quote that scripture and just be like, that's it. It's done.
yeah. I kind of want to wrap up bringing it back to your initial story of, just wondering if you're going to get pregnant, the uncertainty, feeling doubt, and really leaning on to, you said, your husband, which was a good source of that positivity and really helping you stay, trusting that this was going to work out. I know there's just far too many women, moms, even maybe listening right now or watching on YouTube that have struggled with infertility, maybe a loss of a baby, a loss of a pregnancy. And first and foremost, I want to say you are not
Yeah.
alone. And that was one of the things that was comforting to me as I was going through my loss was that I just had an influx of women just surround me and say, like, I've gone through the same thing. I've struggled through the same thing. Everyone's story is obviously different in the way they go through it, but the grief and despair, and then the feeling of your body's failing you is big. It's
Yeah.
huge. And just
Yeah.
know that sometimes it's not easy to trust in God, especially in that area. I struggled big time when I had my miscarriage because I kept thinking, why? I kept saying the question, why, God? Why would you allow this to happen? You know, why? I had my doubts. I really did. There was a time I was angry at God.
Yeah.
And so I want you to know that it's okay to have these feelings, but let me tell you, when you surrender them to the ultimate Father, miracles do happen. Like you use that word, miracles do happen.
Yeah, definitely agree. I love that so much. And it's so true. I think every human being go through this. Every single person, even in the Bible, Gideon, we doubt. This is just human nature. And I was reading a book where it was basically saying that in the Garden of Eden, that apple signifies that this fear, that's what came into man's mind, right? The consciousness of fear. And I was like, that is such a great way of seeing it because God has given us he gave Adam and Eve this Garden of Eden that it was just full of just abundance and overflow and everything, right? There was no lack, right? But then when they ate that apple, their lack came into their lives, fear came into their lives, right? That's where it was. That's that root. And so therefore, as a human, this now because of what happened in the Garden of Eden, it is a natural part of us that we're gonna experience that other aspect of fear. But God, that's why in the Bible, 365 times, the Bible affirms us do not give into fear. Be courageous, right? Because He knows that's the biggest thing that would pull us down.
Yeah, I like that you said that because it just popped in my head. When they ate the fruit and you said they were filled with fear, they hid from God, they
Yeah,
covered themselves, but they also got separated from God. And so I'm thinking, like, as we give into fear, we're allowing that separation from God.
exactly.
That's
Exactly.
amazing, and
Yeah,
helps me put things into perspective too, because it's like a wake-up call, it's like a trigger. I'm scared, I'm fearful of this thing, that means I need to press in more to him. That means I'm
exactly.
not being separated from him when I need to be near him, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
that's why Jesus came to this earth, right? So that we could then have that encounter. We don't have to wait now for the high priest or whatever. All we just need to do is just be like, Jesus, I need your help. And it's just that simple, right? It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it, and a great way to end here on our podcast. But I want to give you a quick opportunity to share how anybody can find you, or if there's anything going on in your business that you want to share.
Absolutely. So right now I'm focused on helping moms of young ones. I'm also expecting my second one. And this time as well with this pregnancy, it was so easy. This is just God because again, there was no resistance around it. Like I just remember in the summer saying to my husband, I want to have my baby when when I'm 37, which I'm turning this year. And I was like, we need to start getting on top of it. And then when we look at it calculated, it was that same month that we got pregnant. It was just that same month, nothing. And there was nothing, no fear, no resistance or anything around that because I just trusted. I was just like, you know what, God, if it's your will, it's gonna be your will, whenever. So now I'm helping moms of young ones to create online courses, basically package their expertise into an online course so that they can have that freedom to be their present mom. You're in your mom journey right now, and your kids, your life revolves around your kids. That's where I am and where I want to be. So it's just being able to package that expertise that God has already given to you so you can have that freedom, you can have more income, and you could create that impact that God has given to you as well to serve other people as well as I help to do that. So right now I have you could find me obviously on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Zanny B Davis. And yeah, you could definitely follow on my journey as well.
Awesome. So I'll be sure to leave the links to your social media and anything else that you want to offer in the notes for the podcast episode. But that was awesome. I loved it. I can't wait for everyone else to hear and share their own thoughts. And until next week, when we have our next guest on, have a blessed day, everyone. And remember that you can overcome your circumstance and thrive in your purpose with God. All right. Bye.
Yay, thanks for having me.